so we're apart here. Really a very simple job. Just had to take these 8 bolts out that I think I talked to you about, not bolts, but screws. And this one was missing 4 of them. But anyway, that you take that out, and then this section right here just picks right up off of there. This black background section for the gauges, actually it sits in there like that so you can see it correctly. It was on this one, it just ended up staying stuck in place just like that. So a real simple thing to just take it off. I'll clean it up. It looks like I've got a little bit of rust on it right here from the thing not being taken care of, and I think my other one is identical to it and in nicer condition, so I'll probably use it instead. That's a nice thing when you get 2 units like this. You just take them apart and pick which are the best pieces from both of them, and then there you go. You can mix and match and put the 2 things together. So here we are. This is the one that I'm using. Notice it says we got 59,000 miles on it. I would assume that's 159, judging by the condition of the truck. But I don't know, and I don't really care. So it works and drives, and I think we're in good shape. You can see the bulbs down in the holes here. Those are your turn signal bulbs, and there'll be 3 other bulbs back behind here that will light up the inside of this white thing, so you get your background for your lighting at night. Now, each one of our gauges here is its own separate little unit. You'll notice they're not tied together right here. It's separate. And you've got 3 different kinds of gauges on these. Yeah, I'm double checking here. Not 3 different, 2 different kinds. Okay, so your fuel gauge, your temperature gauge, your oil gauge are all the same exact gauge. If you can actually take the black cover off and look inside of them, and the mechanism inside of them is exactly identical to each other. Your alternator gauge over here is an amp meter, I believe is what it correctly is. It's a totally different type of gauge inside. And I have actually taken these things, and when I had 2 bad fuel gauges in my, this one and my other one, for instance, I have taken a temperature gauge and swapped the faces on them and put them over there, or an oil gauge, because they all work the same way. And as long as they're in the same unit here, you'll know that they were set up to run with the same voltages, and just the different sensors will send a different signal back to them. So that's that. I'm going to come over here, and your speedometer, I guess, it's a whole different unit unto itself. And as far as I know, if it's not working, I don't know how to fix them. There might be somebody that does, but you just need to get another one out of your parts vehicle and swap it over, and your mileage just won't match. But I believe that everything in here was working. One other little thing that I wish I had some fluorescent, actually I do have some fluorescent orange paint. So I may come back in here and paint these so that they're back to their normal fluorescent colors. You could use a red or any other color that you would feel good putting on. There's no reason that says you can't customize it. So that's that one. Now we'll come over here to where I've got my second one torn apart, and so you'll see back there, there's the gauge cluster, and it's all set up the same inside. It only has 40,000 miles on it. So here's my background piece, which, like I say, doesn't have any of those rust marks on it, so I think I'm going to use it. And then here's the piece we were really after, which was this plastic. And it looks like it's just kind of stuck in place very easily there. It's got a little cushion piece on it that's probably there we go, a little felt type thing, and we will have to get those and put them back on the other one, assuming it didn't have them. Actually, I may just reuse this. But anyway, you can see this, that it's just covered with dirt. The light doesn't even shine through it very good. You couldn't see the gauges. It may be scratched right in here from them trying to clean it off. But I'll try a couple of things, see if I can get it to polish up good. The back of it looks perfectly fine. And so we'll clean that up and polish on a little bit, see if we can make it look a little nicer. But at any rate, it'll probably be better than not having anything on there. That's that piece. This chrome part here is actually slightly different from my other one. I think they'll totally interchange. But for whatever reason, on this older one, they had this metal plate on top. And I don't know if it's just a stiffener or what it is, but it's held in by 4 screws or 5 screws here. I got a couple of broken ones on the end, but these are not on my other one from my newer truck over there. And but I think I'm going to end up trying to use this chrome part from this truck instead. I think it's in better shape. I'll look at that a little closer and determine that. Right now I want to show you how those gauges come out. It's pretty obvious, but I just want to pull one out for you so that you can see that it's not a big deal. And so on the back here you have this one, this one, this one are all the same basic gauge. This is your alternator gauge here, which is a different gauge altogether. Now, interestingly enough, I saw this, and I'll flip it around here. On this older truck, I remember I told you I think it had a wiring harness on it. If you look, by each one of those places, you've got wiring instructions. So it tells you there's a red with a white stripe and a black with a white stripe that go on these 2 poles right here. And so that would really help you if you were trying to hook the thing back up and didn't know exactly where things go. And it even tells you for each of the lights which color of wire goes to which light. There you go, blue with a red stripe on that one up there. So that'll help you know a little bit about these things. Okay, back here we're going to pull this gauge out, get some pliers or wrench, because these are little stamped nuts. They're not even real. Ouch. What did I do there? Sorry about that. Got a little metal sliver in my finger. So there we go. Pull those 2, get those nuts loose like that. And this little cardboard piece that's in there, you want to be careful and not lose that and don't break it, because these terminals are actually the terminals of the gauge as well as the mounting points, and they are hot. There's electricity going through. One of them will be hot, one of them will be ground, I think. They may actually be hot in and hot out to a ground, and so if either one of them touched your metal, you would ground out on it. So you want to make sure you don't mess that thing up if you can help it. If you do, you need to put something back in there that would insulate it, but preferably just take care of the one you've got. Now on my other gauge cluster, remember we had a plastic box that they were going into, so it really wasn't critical for it to have that. Okay, that's a little bit tighter than I thought it would be. Keeps running into some resistance as we try to spin it off there. There we go. Alright, 2 nuts off. We got our cardboard insulator that comes off, and see it's got the slot. Now we'll lift this thing off, and voila! There we have a gauge. There we go. Oh, that's our fuel gauge. Alright. So I'll give you a look at it here. Here's your poles, and again, well, no, I thought that was it is, oh, yeah, this little piece here on the back that goes around the bolts, Kind of has this funky shape on it right through here. That's another insulator piece of, it's a kind of a special kind of cardboard or something for that. So you want to be careful not to damage those. Now, if you want to get inside of the gauge to examine it, I'm not going to do it on this one, but you can get yourself, let's get up closer here. You can get yourself, okay, hold still, focus camera, there we go, and bend these little tabs back. You see how that's bent over right there? If you just stick a little screwdriver in there and work that till it's straight up and down this way, and come over here and it's bent there also, as well as same thing around on the other side, here and here. You do that and that gauge face is going to come right off of there. It's basically just a flat piece of metal, and you have to be careful bringing it off around that needle there, because that's a little bit, it's very, fragile. That's the word I'm looking for. And so you want to be careful getting it out of that hole. But you can do that. You can swap faces with one of the other gauges, and bingo, there you go. You've got yourself a replacement gauge. And as funny as it sounds, these are actually the same kind of gauges if you wanted to, if you're building yourself a hot rod and you wanted to just have some round gauges and you were being really super low buck, like Crazy Dad's Garage is sometimes, you could actually take this and cut this outside edge off very carefully with like a Dremel tool, and you would have yourself a round gauge that you could then mount in some kind of a round hole there and build yourself a set of gauges. You'd have 4 of them over here, which would be the main ones that you need. The only thing you wouldn't have is a tachometer and a speedometer, and you could, but that's something you could figure out. On my rat rod, I actually took a set of gauges out of, it was a 74, so it's the dent side, not the bump side, but they're identical to these gauges, at least these parts are. And I took them out and I put them in the 47 Ford gauge cluster that I had, because the gauges were identical, and just replaced the ones that were bad in there. So there's lots of cool things you can do. This is among Fords. I have actually not been into a Chevy or a Dodge, so I can't really tell you how they're made, but I know on a Ford this is something that you've actually got the option to do. So there you go. This went quite long on this section, but I hope that you're learning something from it. So I'm going to now go in and do all my cleanup of the parts, and I'll come back and show you as I put this thing back together, and we'll take it from there. So there you go. We'll talk to you in a little bit.